Hi, I'm Sarah Hill. I'm the CEO of Bookstr, and we're here today with the one and only Tony Robbins discussing his book, Unshakeable, Your Financial Freedom Playbook. Tony, thank you for being on the show today.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you too. Again, we are fielding your questions live. We have Gabby over here. She is looking in the comments section so that we can get Tony your question to him immediately. Tony, I have a few questions that are just personal questions.
Okay.
Why did you write this book, and can you tell us about that writing process?
Well, I hate writing, so I'm sorry. I didn't write a book for almost 20 years after writing a bunch of books because I love the spontaneity of being on stage. I have 10,000 people at a time, and it's always changing, and I'm a very active person, so to sit and be still and type drives me a little crazy. But so I spent 5 years interviewing 50 of the smartest financial people literally in the world, all self-made billionaires, with the goal of saying, what can I learn from them that I could simplify so that anyone could get financial freedom? And is it even possible today with all the crazy things that are happening financially? And what I can tell you, you absolutely can win, not from my perspective, from interviewing the very best. But I wrote this 700-page tome called Money Master the Game, became #1 New York Times bestseller. I'm real proud of it. But I've seen so much fear the last year and a half or 2 years because the Trump presidency to what's happening in markets around the world that I decided I wanted to write a simple book that you could read in like 4 hours over a weekend or whatever the case would be that would absolutely show you that there's a crash coming. We all know that. No one knows the timing. It's going to be in 6 months or 12 or 24 or 36. Anyone tells you knows doesn't know. But when it comes, you want to be prepared. Even if you're not in the market, it would affect you. And you want to, more importantly than prepare, you want to figure out how to take advantage of it. Because what I want to know is, I think a lot of your viewers might be millennials.
Yep.
So many millennials out there have got so much debt from college, and they may think they're never going to get over it. Or even baby boomers that never got started, and they think it's too late. But when a crash happens, I know this sounds counterintuitive, but when a crash happens, it's the one chance in your opportunity in your life, or one of the chances, to leapfrog from where you are now to where you really want to be financially. Because literally everything goes on sale. Most ladies, if you said you can get your favorite shoes, your favorite outfits for 50% off, they'd be pretty excited. But when the stock market goes 50% off, everybody panics. And yet, every 5 years we have a crash, like clockwork. We're overdue. It's been 8 years. This is the second largest bull market ever. And what I want people to do is to see that every single one of those crashes the next year was an explosion up, a bull market. So if you remember 2008, and I don't know what you were involved with at that time, and maybe you remember the market's crashing 50%, but they went up 69% over the next 12 months. And this has happened every single time for 2.5 centuries of American history. So if you didn't sell, you didn't lose anything, you would be up 70%. Now some people say, I don't understand the market, I don't know how to invest. So I wrote this book for anyone. This is like, 3, 4, 5 hours. You'll know exactly how to protect yourself. You'll know exactly what to do to take advantage. And you'll be excited. And then it takes 15, 20 minutes a year to just rebalance. And you go back to your normal life. But now you have a business on the side with no employees, with no moving parts. That takes you 15 or 20 minutes a year. And it allows you to really get your financial security handled or financial freedom handled. And if you own a business or you have some other form of income, wonderful. Now you got 2 sources, but everyone deserves that second source.
That's great. That's such good advice. Even for millennials, I think a 4-hour book, we could do it, We could.
If you love reading, you'll love this book for sure, because it won't take long.
So I also have another question. And again, we're fielding questions live, so please feel free to leave them in the comments. Who did you choose and why? You chose 50 experts to seek advice, or for you to give the, be giving the advice to, readers, right? So why did you choose those people, and why did you choose them?
Every person I picked was either a Nobel Prize winner or a self-made billionaire, because the level of accomplishment in the educational field, you can't do more than that. In the financial field, you can't do more than that. Nobody from the Lucky Sperm Club, nobody that was born rich. They all had to earn it, which was really beautiful. And what I really was looking, though, was I had so many different types of investors. I was trying to see, did they have things in common? And I did find 4 things. The first one that they all had in common was, and these are all billionaires, is it sounds really simple, but they were obsessed with not losing money. Now, why is that interesting? Well, because most people you interview are obsessed with, how do I make money? But see, if you lose money, if you lose 50% during a market, which a lot of people do, it'll take you got to make 100% to get even. If you had $100,000 and it drops to 50 and it goes back up 50, that's only $75,000. So these guys are obsessed, and they know they're going to be wrong. If you're at home saying, gosh, what if I make a mistake? What if I'm wrong? You're going to be wrong. But they design, and I explain this in this book, an asset allocation, enough diversification of where they put the money, that if the market drops 50%, they don't lose 50%. And they have a way of reducing their risk, and I explain that. The second thing they all have in common is most people think to get big rewards, these billionaires must have taken huge risks, and I just can't take risks like that. It's just not true. The most successful billionaires do not take big risks. They do something called, big word, asymmetrical risk reward. It simply means they take the least risk they can to get the biggest upside. So for example, I've coached one of the top 10 financial traders in the history of the world for 24 years. His name is Paul Tudor Jones. He hasn't lost money in 24 years that I've coached him. Oh. And almost no one on earth can say that. Multi-billionaire. He built Robinhood here in New York that takes care of the poor here. He's raised $2.5 billion to take care of people in New York. He's an amazing man. But because of working with him, I learned what he used to do. He then had a bad time, and I turned him around. I've been coaching him ever since. And what he used to do is always look at something and say, if I risk $1, I want to believe I'm going to make 5. I'll be wrong. So I could risk 2 and I'll still make a lot of money. He could be wrong 4 times out of 5 and make money. Or another way of describing this is there's a man named Kyle Bass. He took $30 million of other people's money and turned it into $2 billion in 2 years during 2008, 2009, the worst economic time.
Wow.
How do you do it? He bet against the real estate market. Everybody thought real estate was going to go forever. He bet against it. But the key was he never risked more than 6 cents to try to make $1. So he could be wrong 15 times and he'd still make money. And he wasn't wrong 15 times. So I asked him, how would you explain asymmetrical risk reward to someone who's never invested or to a young person, a child?
Sure.
And he goes, Tony, it's amazing you asked me that because I've spent the last year trying to figure out how to teach my kids this because I want them to know this because this is what makes you wealthy. And he said, so I sat around asking, where is there a riskless reward? Now, most investors say that's impossible, but he said, I kept looking and I found it in nickels. I said, nickels? What are you talking about? He said, Tony, look at this. If you buy a nickel, it's worth 5 cents and it'll never go down in value. So whatever you invested will never lose money. But the minute you buy a nickel, they have too much, they still have nickel in them, and nickel's more expensive than the nickel. So now, a nickel today, if you melt it, is worth 6.8 cents. So he said, the day I buy it, I can never lose money. It's always worth 5 cents. But the day I buy it, it's worth 33%. Where can you get no risk and make 33%? And I said to him, yes, but it's not legal to melt the money anymore. He goes, that's right, Tony, but I don't need to. Pennies used to be made of copper, and then copper got too expensive. So they're now made of tin, 90%, 95% tin. And he said, but all the old pennies, because they're out of circulation, are more valuable. And so the minimum you can buy a penny for is 100% more than its face value. He said, so I'm going to make 100 or 200%. So he called the Federal Reserve, and said, I want to buy all your nickels. And he said, they would only sell me 20 million nickels.
Oh my God.
And he had his kids drag him in a room about 3 times the size of this room. It's packed to the ceiling with nickels because the kids know I can make an investment where I never lose. I make 33% on them the very first day, and I'll make 100% or more over time. Wow. So there's always a way. The third thing they have in common is they understand that when you talk to a broker or someone, they'll tell you what you're earning, but they don't subtract the fees, or they don't subtract the taxes, and the only money you can spend is what's left. So I train everyone to teach me what's the net number, and tax efficiency is really important because most people watching probably have heard of compounding, right? Where, you double $1 and it's 2, double that it's 4, double that it's 8. Well, 20 doublings is $1,048,000. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. But if you just paid 33% tax each year, and most people pay more than 33% of taxes, you have $28,000 at the end. That's all that's left because the compounding is interrupted by those costs. So I show people how to be more tax efficient. And then finally, you just have to diversify across different countries, across different stocks. Like if you love real estate, you don't want to put all your money in real estate, right? You want it diversified. If you love stocks, you don't want it all in stocks. It has to be diversified. And I explain how to do that in the book.
That's such great information. We have a ton of questions coming in here. Okay, Sam wants to know, what's the biggest professional risk that you've taken, even though you say do not take risks?
Oh, I don't say do not take risks. I'm sorry if that's how it came across. I was saying when you come to investing, I'll give you an example. Richard Branson's a friend of mine, and most people know he takes risks with his life all the time, right? He's just like giant risks, take a balloon around the earth, across the ocean and that type of thing. But he never takes those risks in business. His number one question in business is, what's the downside and how do we protect it? So for example, when he built Virgin, he's going to compete with British Air, one of the biggest companies in the world. And the expenses of buying these 767 jets, that's huge risk.
Right.
So Richard spent almost 2 years, a year and a half, and he negotiated with Boeing that if he went broke, if he went out of business, if Virgin went out of business within the first 2 years, he could give back the planes that would cost him nothing. So he had zero downside, all upside. That's asymmetrical reward. As far as risks I've taken, I take them all the time. I'm here because I took these risks. Because I got on national television when I was 22, 23 years old up in Canada, and I challenged psychiatrists and psychologists and said, "Give me your worst patient. I don't care how many years you've been treating them. I don't care if they have uncontrollable phobias. Some of you treated 5, 6, 7, 10 years. I'll handle them in 1 hour. Call me now." And a psychiatrist got on the air in Vancouver and thrashed me. He said, "You're a liar, you're a charlatan, no one can do that. You can't wipe out, a phobia in an hour." And I said, "Sir, have you ever met me?" He said, "No." I said, "Have you ever met my clients?" He said, "No." "You never met me, you never met my clients, and you're calling me a liar and a charlatan on national radio." I said, "Sir, are you a scientist?" He said, "Of course, I'm a physician." I said, "Oh, good, because I know a scientist would never assume anything." And I said, "So since you've never met me and you're not making an assumption, you must be stating your hypothesis. Your hypothesis is I'm a liar and a charlatan and this isn't possible." But I said, "If you're truly a scientist, don't you have to test your hypothesis?" He goes, "Well, yeah." I go, "Great. I suggest you come. I'm doing a free guest event at the Holiday Inn tomorrow night, 7:30. Everyone hearing can come. No charge. I'm going to do a series of demonstrations. Bring me one of your patients. Bring me somebody you've never been able to cure." I said, "I'm sure you got plenty of those." Because he was being mean, so I thought I'd give him a little push, right? He goes, "We all have patients that aren't ready to change yet." I said, "That's funny. I haven't found any." Of course, I'd done like 4 therapies in my whole life at that stage. But I really believed. And so long story short, I did this free seminar. He came, he brought this woman he treated for 7 years for a snake phobia. And a phobia is an uncontrollable response to fear. It took me about 15 minutes. I wrapped the snake around this woman, and that launched my career. Now, that was risky. What if I couldn't pull it off? It was the first time I ever did in my life. But then I started taking people addicted to drugs, to alcohol. I had a woman who hadn't had an orgasm in 10 years and gave her an orgasm without touching her, obviously. But I had guys come in saying, "Could you teach me how to do that when I'm tired?" So over the years, I then worked with Andre Agassi and Princess Diana and President Clinton, and it just grew and grew and grew. And then I became a businessman, so now I have 31 companies. And they'll all take risks. I'm in everything you can imagine. Virtual reality, I have NextVR, which is a company we have the exclusive with the NBA. So, Monday Night Football, we're having Tuesday Night NBA this next year. We got the Live Nation exclusive, so you can go to a concert and be there. I have stem cell companies, education companies. We have $5 billion in sales with 1,200 employees. So there's a lot of risk there. So I take risks all the time, but I take educated risks. And that's really what I teach in this book, how to reduce the risk to the smallest risk possible with the greatest upside. That's how you really become financially free and financially stable, which I want people to have. By the way, I'm donating 100% of the profits of this book. I did my last book too. I had a $5 million advance. I gave it all away. And I'm doing the same thing here. We fed 50 million people with that $5 million originally through Feeding America. And then I did matching funds. So we fed 100 million people last year, 100 million the year before, feeding 100 million this year, and 50 million to come from this book. So if you get the book, you'll change your own life. And listen, you've got to get this book. I'm not making any money on it. You can't afford to miss out on how to protect yourself and how to benefit when the next challenge happens. But we'll feed, every one of these books feeds 50 people. So help yourself and help somebody else and pick it up. It's called Unshakeable.
And I just want to say congratulations. You are #1 right now on Amazon
bestsellers. Yeah, we're amongst all books. Yeah,
all books. Yeah. So
that's really nice.
That's great. We have more questions here. We have Amy is wondering, what's the best advice you've been given to help advance your career?
Gosh, that's a good question. My original teacher was a man named Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N, and he was a personal development speaker. And he said something to me. I remember I was struggling early in my career. I was working so hard, and I always tell people, we tend to overestimate what we can do in a year, overestimate. And we underestimate what we can do in a decade. And the decade will happen like that. Or in my case, 3. Or 4. I guess I've been doing this 40 years. I started when I was 2, of course. Right? But what I can tell you is if you are in a situation where you will put yourself in immersion with whatever it is you want to master. My teacher, when I was really struggling, turned to me and I said, I don't understand. I'm working so hard. I'm not there. He said, Tony, Your gifts will make room for you. Keep giving, keep delivering, keep adding value. If you keep doing more for other people than anybody else does, you will eventually dominate the industry. You'll dominate the world. You'll become a brand. It's exactly because I've done it for 40 years, so here I am, still, and hopefully for many decades to come, God willing.
That's great advice. Jeff asks, with the increasing rates of student loans rising, what would you suggest as the best way to succumb to lifelong debilitating, best way to not succumb to lifelong debilitating debts?
Well, first of all, I would go negotiate, and there are ways to do that. You can check it out online that can allow you today. President Obama really pushed to try to make it something that was more flexible. But you have to become an owner. You can't be just a consumer and expect to ever have financial security for yourself or your family. If you own an Apple phone and you don't own Apple, more important than Apple, you don't own the index, the S&P 500, even with a small amount of money of the 500 best companies, you own a little piece of all of them, then you're really missing out, because those businesses, America's been around 2.5 centuries, right? In those 2.5 centuries, the market has done this over the long term. It's had corrections, but the overall is up. And Warren Buffett explained it to me. He said, Tony, it's really simple. America is the most productive country in the world. We are always getting more productive because we're the leaders in technology. We have a population that's growing, and we have inflation. With those three things, the market over time has gone up. And betting against the market in America has been the worst thing you could have done in the last 2 centuries. Anybody who's done it has lost. But you got to become an owner. So you say, how do I do that, Tony? I'm not an investor. I'm just reading. You happen to be on. I'm really not interested in you, but I'm watching. Good. So here's what I say to you. You got to become an owner by just picking a percentage of your income that, I don't care if it's even small, that you're going to keep for your family no matter what. You're not going to give it to Kate Spade or Tesla or anybody else. You can do those things too. But this 10, 15, 20%, whatever it is, it will change your life. I'll give you an example. There's a man I talk about in the book who, it's a true story, from the 1950s, and his name's Theodore Johnson, and he was a driver for UPS. And he made never more than $14,000 in annual income. He retired with $70 million, and he didn't inherit a dime.
Whoa.
How? A friend of his did exactly what I teach you in this book. He came to him and said, I'm going to make you a wealthy man. I'm going to make you a wealthy man later in life when you'll really need the money. Here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to put a 20% tax on you. 20%? He goes, I make $14,000 a year. I can't live on less than 20%. He said, look, if the government came in and raised your taxes 20%, you'd scream, you'd yell, you'd bitch, and you'd pay it. And you get adjusted to it. He goes, this is more important because this is your future. He convinced them to do it. He had the money automatically taken out, so he never saw it, went straight into an investment account, had him do the investments, $70 million 30 years later, and he gave away $35 million while he's alive. If you are a millennial, I'll give you an example, or you have a young friend millennial or family member, there's an example in the book I give of a young man whose father convinced him to get his first job, and at 18, he said, you're going to save $300 every month out of your salary. It sounds like a lot, but once you automate it, you'll forget about it. It's there. And he has that money, and he sets it aside. Well, he does that from the age of 18 to 27, so 8 years. The total amount of money of $300 a month is like $4,000 a year, it's only $28,000. But he then leaves the money in the market. The market has averaged over 10% over 30 years. It grows this way it has. And what does he have 30 years later? Without adding a penny, only $28,000, he has $1.8 million.
Wow.
Now, if you wait till you're 29 and you start and you put $300 a month aside every year till you're 65, that's nice too, but you still won't make as much money because you started later, right? So he puts in $140,000, gets $1.4 million, still pretty good,
yeah.
but $400,000 less, and he put, 4 times, 5 times much more money in there. Yeah. So I want your viewers to know and readers to know that the way compounding works, you don't need a lot of money, you need a lot of time. And if you're a millennial, you got plenty of time. Now, if you don't have a lot of time, you're going to need more money, but you got to take that percentage and set it aside. And once you do, once you automate it, and then we show you where to put it, it's a different world. And you know what it is? Most of us are financial traders. I'm sure most of your viewers, I'm not a financial trader. Yes, you are. You're trading time for money. It's the worst trade in the world. Why? Can't get back more time. So what I want to do is show you how to make money your slave, how to take a tiny amount of money, wherever you are right now, and just set it aside, start to invest it, so you really can have financial stability and security for the rest of your life, and you get rid of the hassles. It's not something you have to look at every day. It's stupid to look at each day. It takes time. You look at it once a year for 15 minutes. If that appeals to you, if you'd like to know those answers, then pick up this book and share it with your friends, and let's go feed some people while we help you to really develop what you deserve to have in terms of financial freedom.
Great. We have a few more questions here for you. Someone says, I love when you talk about emotion being the root of motivation. What do you do to stir emotion within yourself personally?
Oh, that's great. Well, I have a wife, and I have 4 kids, and I have 3 grandkids, so I'll almost stir up your emotions for you, right? But for me, I believe leaders are readers. I mean, you guys are all readers, so, but I don't read a lot of novels. You know, I've read over 700 books. My first 7 years, I took a speed reading course because my teacher taught me leaders are readers. And if you don't load your mind with quality information, leads go automatically. And these days, it follows you in your pocket and your phone. So I believe everybody should read 30 minutes a day minimum. I'm not talking about internet. I'm talking about a book. I'm talking about something that's going to challenge you, make you grow, give you insight spiritually or emotionally or financially or for your kids or whatever the case may be. And I really believe if you do that consistently, whatever rate you read at doesn't really matter. You're going to be feeding your mind and you're going to have a totally different experience than people that don't. So leaders are readers. Make sure you schedule it for yourself. I'd miss a meal and not miss the reading. It's that important.
That's great. We have someone asking the name of the book again. Again, it's Unshakeable by Tony Robbins.
It's a financial freedom playbook. It's really about how to have peace of mind in a world that has so much volatility. The idea of Unshakeable is how would you feel if it didn't matter what happened in the economy, it didn't matter what happened in real estate or stocks, you knew your family was going to be prosperous no matter what. That's what this book will show you how to do.
So we've hit our 20-minute mark and we're starting to wrap up. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. We have another question here. Oh, and we'll try and get to those questions. But if we don't, then we will try and get you answers to those questions.
That's fair.
We have 2 interesting questions. I'll save that one. Okay, how about what has been one of your greatest professional failures to date and what did you take away from it?
I'm not one of those optimistic, overly positive people. I really am not. I believe in intelligence. I believe in seeing things as they are, not worse than they are. But I also believe in seeing it better than it is because that's what inspires you to make the change. And then I believe in putting in massive action to change it. So there aren't anything, I'm not being mamby-pamby, but I don't feel like anything is a failure as long as I've learned from it. You know, everybody fails at anything that you're new at. But so for me, I've had failures. Like I remember I used to get up and do these free guest events and I would say, stand up, I don't care what your problem is and how many years you've had, I'm going to solve it now. And I learned because I had one time, 99% of the time I pulled it off. But I had one time where this man was just like, he was just standing up. His whole purpose was not to change. He didn't really want to change in any way, shape, or form. And I remember being on stage and I was sweating, right? Because, I thought I'd get this thing done in 15 minutes and it was like 45 minutes into it and it didn't seem to be working and people were leaving. But it taught me I need to find leverage. Everyone will change when it becomes a must for them. And so some people, smoking and getting lung cancer won't make them stop, but they might stop for a child, right? They might stop for someone they love, but they won't stop for themselves. Everyone has that trigger point. And it made me, I got smarter. I didn't just bring people up, I dug into their psyche. I mean, what's the reason? Why is change a must? Because if it's not a must, you're not going to do it. The minute it's hard, you go away. I always tell people, if you want to take the island, burn your boats. Because as long as you have a way to go out, the human brain will rationalize and take you away. But if there's no way out, you're going to go forward. Yeah. And that's really what I really learned to do. So I've had zillions. I've been near bankruptcy multiple times, but I have 31 companies. So in the beginning, there's a couple companies there. It was pretty rough when the market dropped, 25%, that type of thing. But I've learned from everything I've done. I'm sure there's something I haven't learned that I'm leaving out. But the things that have been most challenging, I find that when people succeed, they tend to party. When they fail, they tend to ponder. And pondering is where you get answers, not celebrating, right? So I think sometimes having those failures is a really good thing. And I don't look at them as failures, but I learn them as learning experiences. If I don't learn, then it's a failure. Absolutely. That's such good advice. I love that about the island. Burn your boats. That's how you get it. I need that on our wall. That's how you build a business, right? Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. Okay, we have, when did you know that you were going to be a rock star? Well, I don't know that I am. When did I know I'd succeed on a large scale? I love people. When I was a kid, I loved people. But when I was in high school, I was not the most popular kid. I didn't smoke and drink, and it wasn't because I was a goody two-shoes. It just, I grew up in an environment where people abused alcohol, and there was physical abuse of myself and my brothers and sisters, which I did everything I could to defend. So I never got into those types of things. But I think early on, when I was in high school and I wasn't the popular kid and I decided to run for student body president because I actually wanted to do things for kids in the school, and I ran it like a real campaign. I went and interviewed different groups, and I found out what they wanted. I went to the principal and I came back and told him that's not going to happen, but I think I can make this happen. I was so clear and honest that I won. And when I won that, it made me believe that if you're sincere, no matter whether your style is different or not, you can get through to anybody and you can grow and help people and prosper. And so I think it was a seminal time in my life that made me believe that was possible. And then obviously as the years have gone by, I've taken on bigger and bigger challenges. And, gradually when I started turning sports stars around, and when I started working with, Mother Teresa and Nelson Mandela and Princess Diana and President Clinton, I think at that stage I was like, okay, I'm 31 years old and I'm coaching the President of the United States. It's going pretty well. And that was, now I'm 50, I turned 57 the other day. So I'm, what is that, 31 to 57, a lot of years, right, since that time. So it's been a while. But I never take it for granted. It's not about being a rock star. It's about serving. And if you constantly are sincerely doing more for others than anybody else, people are incredibly generous, and you'll get a hell of a lot more than money. You'll get what's priceless. You'll get love. You'll get a sense of meaning in your life. You'll get a sense that you've had an impact. And that's what drives me at this stage, because obviously I don't need to make any more money at this stage of my life. I enjoy building businesses and succeeding, but it's more about keeping score and how I'm going to feed 1 billion people. Or, in India, I go to India a lot, and there's kids dying every day there from just polluted water and waterborne diseases. So I provide fresh water to 250,000 people a day there, and my goal is to get that to 1 million. I was just a couple weekends ago, I can't say where, but I'm part of the Underground Railroad, which rescues girls who are in sexual slavery. And I was in a third world country with all these former CIA, FBI, and Special Forces guys. They all do this. I was undercover, I was makeup, I had a big scar on my face, the whole 9 yards. And we rescued 36 girls, the largest in that country's history, 9 to 13 that were chained to beds, being forced to have sex with men for the madams there. And we locked up 13 of the worst perpetrators in that country. So, so I love those things, but I can only do those things because I'm economically free. So I can give these guys $1 million, and I can go down there and spend my time and energy and begin to support. So I'm always looking for those things that'll grow. And I think if you're watching, what'll make you earn more money or maybe make you an investor is probably not you. It's probably your kids and your family. It's probably thinking of what you could do in your community or what you could do in the world that'll drive you. And if you don't think it's possible, I get it, because you never made that kind of money before. But the richest people in the world that earn their way there don't last there. Think about all the actors, actresses, athletes that made more money than God, $10 million, $20 million, and then they're broke. 50 Cent. Yeah. He made $100 million. He got a tip on vitamin water. I think his net worth was $300 million. Just went bankrupt. He bought Mike Tyson's house, 25,000 square foot house, which he's now selling. Mike Tyson made $500 million and went bankrupt. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but I just read the other day, I'm sure you saw the fight that's going on with Johnny Depp. And he's made $750 million, $750 million. And they say he may go bankrupt because he spends $30,000 a month on wine. Yeah. And he took Hunter Thompson, the reporter, the journalist, burned his body and spent $3 million to blow his ashes into space in a cannon. I mean, you can waste as much money as you want to out there. So my point is, you don't earn your way to that. What you want to do is make money while you sleep, slowly, and let it compound until it really gives you financial freedom. That's great advice and a wonderful note to end on. Tony, thank you so much. Where can our audience buy your book? It's available now. You can get it at Amazon, you can get it at Barnes & Noble, anywhere. But if you go to Unshakeable.com, I also have some free podcasts for you there. And if you decide to buy it anywhere and you bring back the receipt or the digital receipt, I'll send you some digital products as a gift, because I'm trying to get this out to as many people as possible. Because I want to feed as many people as we can and help you simultaneously. So Unshakeable.com, or just go to any bookstore, Amazon, it's available. It's #1, as you said, on Amazon right now of all books. Great. And then how can they follow you on Facebook? Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm at TonyRobbins.com in most of those places, or TonyRobbins.com. TonyRobbins.com is our website, but at Tony Robbins is what I'm under in all those places. Okay, great. All right, thank you guys. Thanks, Tony. Nice being with you. Thank you again. Yeah. Congratulations on your firm. Thank you.